Bonjour everyone and welcome back to the Waves of Your Soul. I am your humble French tarot reader Marine, and today I'm super excited to be coming back with a deck review. This is the Classic of Mountains and Sea Tarot by Heritedge. And I have been working with this deck for the last 2 weeks or so. I finally felt ready to share my reviews with you guys, share my full thoughts, how I've been working with it, do a little walkthrough. Before we get into this, I want to be very transparent that this is a deck that was sent to me by Heritedge, the creators, for review. That being said, this will not affect my review, as always I will be sharing my own opinions, my own honest thoughts. So this is the Classic of Mountains and Sea Tarot. It is a tarot deck that is inspired by ancient Eastern mythology. So it's a deck very rooted in Eastern mythology lore, artifacts, mythological creatures, fauna and flora. It's not a mythology I'm super familiar with, and yet I'm a huge mythology fan, so I loved learning more about Eastern mythology, specifically Chinese mythology, through this deck. Before I get into the review, you will find where you can get this deck in the description box. You will find the Heritedge website, who are the creators. I will also leave the link to the original Kickstarter campaign that was created to launch this deck, as I found a lot of useful information myself reading through the Kickstarter campaign, so I'll make sure to leave that in the description box below for you guys. And I was sent the standard set, which comes with this tuck box, as you can see, and a deck as well as a PDF guidebook. This set retails for $54. You can also get a deluxe edition that comes with a very big, beautiful book. It's more expensive, that edition. I don't have it, but I've noticed that there's 2 different editions on their website. This is a standard one. So in the description box you'll find all the links where you can get this. You will also find other videos of mine you may want to check out. You'll find my social media links, and of course I want to say a huge thank you to Heritedge for sending this my way, for allowing me to review this, to try this on. Always an honor to receive the trust of creators who decide to send me their creation. Without further ado, let's get into this review of the Classic of Mountains and Sea Tarot. So let's talk about the production. As you can see, the standard deck comes in this tuck box. Inside you will have the name of the creators, Heritedge, the name of the company, and this is a tuck box with little holographic detailing. Here you might not be able to see it on the camera because it's a bit of a gray day today. This here has holographic detailing, which is really nice, and here are the card backs, which are absolutely stunning. I have to hold it a little bit on the side because they're a little bit glossy, as you can tell. It's very interesting because the back is super glossy, but the front of the card is matte. So that's really cool. I've never had a tarot deck like that where the back was kind of shiny, a little bit glossy, the back was matte, but I mean, it's beautiful for me, and I actually prefer like fronts to be matte, but this back with this dragon and this little bit glossy effect is absolutely beautiful. I saw that on the Kickstarter campaign it said that this was 400-gram extra thick cardstock, so just letting you guys know for any of my cardstock snob out there. And we have gold side, as you can see, and it's standard tarot size. So I can tell you in terms of production, in terms of the artwork, as you're gonna see, it is very, very detailed, and I know what some of you guys are gonna think. You're gonna look at this, you're gonna be like, is this AI? Because that was my question as well. In a world where there's a lot of AI decks out there, so sometimes we can be like wondering if a deck is created with AI. This is not an AI deck. This was created with digital tablet computer, Photoshop, and a team of artists who drew everything their tablets and then using Photoshop and everything. And on the Kickstarter you will actually see the process, so they've split it, you can see different images. Kickstarter also mentioned that the only use of AI was used on 4 cards, and it was for what they call detailed refinements, so like just little verifications, tiny details on 4 cards. But on the Kickstarter they even explained that they can provide all design process drafts as videos for verification for anyone who has any doubts about whether AI was used for this or not. They can even provide proof that it was not used. So I was wondering at first when I saw something so intricate, I was like, is this gonna be an AI deck or not? But it turns out it's not. They can provide proof that it's not. And I'm quoting their Kickstarter there, but they say that our team believes that tarot decks are more than just visually appealing patterns. They carry deep meanings that requires the artist's understanding of the symbolism behind each card. While AI can indeed enhance painting efficiency, we don't believe it can possess the empathy needed to connect with the universe. So that's their take on using AI. This is why they've only used it on 4 cards to clean. In terms of how the deck is structured, so we have, for the major arcana, we only have deities. So each person depicted or being depicted on the major arcana is a different deity, and of course we're going to do a walkthrough after that, but I just want to give you an overview of the deck. So the major arcana is all different deities from Eastern mythology, and they are actually my favorite part of the deck. I think they hold the energy of the tarot archetypes so well. I thought that even not knowing who these beings are, I could read very easily what the cards are, because I thought, you know, this for a death card, you can feel the death in there, you can feel the death archetype, it's powerful. For example, the star card, when you see this, I mean, you feel the star card here, it's hopeful, it's light, it's beautiful. So the major arcana is definitely my favorite part of the tarot cards, because I thought it was super interesting to learn all about these different divinities and deities, and the guidebook is fantastic for that. It really talks you through who each person is in details, and we'll go through it obviously during the walkthrough. And the deck is divided into 4 suits, obviously, being a tarot deck. So the cups are related to water, and they are what they've called artifacts and elixirs. So for all of the cups, we are in the realm of artifacts and elixirs, which relate to Eastern mythology, Eastern culture. Then for the swords, we have what they called ferocious beasts. So these are divine beings that are related to the air suit. For the ones, we have what they have called divine beasts. So on each of the cards, you have a different divine beast, a divine creature. Again, the guidebook tells you who that is, and we'll go into details as to that. And finally, the pentacles is related to earth, and it's what they've called the mystical realm suit. So for each of the pentacles, you have a different landscape almost that relates to a different mythological landscape, mystical realm, related again to Eastern culture, Eastern mythology. Before we go into the full walkthrough and I show you each card and everything, I want to give you my little overview. That this deck is so full of lore, it's so rich, it's so deep in lore, that this is definitely, for me, as someone who is not familiar with this culture or this mythology, this is a study deck. It was really a study deck for me, because it doesn't quite follow the RWS Toss or Marseille in the depictions, in like what it looks like. It does follow traditional tarot, specifically I found the Rider-Waite-Smith in the meanings, and when you read the guidebook, you will see that the meanings make so much sense. You will understand why they've chosen a certain beast to represent a certain card, for example, because the meaning behind the story of that beast makes sense. But for me, as someone who is not very familiar with, for example, these creatures, seeing this as a Two of Swords, until I read the guidebook as to what or who this was, I struggled a little bit at first understanding how to read this as a Two of Swords. So for me, I've approached this as a study deck. I think it's absolutely rich in lore, rich in tradition. The guidebook is fantastic. It really holds your hand. Everything is well thought out in the sense of them linking a myth to a card story. That being said, is this the perfect tarot deck for beginners? I don't think so, because this is so different to traditional tarot in what it looks like, not in the meaning, but in what it looks like, that unless you're super familiar with this culture, and this is potentially the culture where you come from and you know these stories, then it could be a little bit harder to approach this deck. However, if you are remotely interested in Eastern mythology, Chinese mythology, and you are wanting to learn more about this, and you're also into the idea of using a tarot deck to deepen your knowledge for that, it's a deck I got more and more familiar with, but that I still myself, even as someone who reads tarot very, very consistently, need to rely on the guidebook. So I just wanted to put that out there, that for me, right now, it's definitely more of a study deck. I've used this almost as an oracle deck, where I've pulled 2 to 3 cards, read the guidebook, let that sink in. So I would say that maybe this is not the most approachable deck for beginners, but if you are passionate about this subject, or you want to learn more about Eastern mythology, and obviously you are enchanted by the artwork, then I think this deck has a lot to offer. Okay, so those are my thoughts, just a little overview. But now, let's get into the walkthrough. Before we get into the walkthrough, just a little disclaimer. Obviously, Chinese is not my first language, and it's not even my second or third language. I did study Chinese when I was younger, when I was like 10, and then I did it a little bit again at university, but that was a long time ago, and I've forgotten most of it, sadly, because I did not practice in a long time. So I'm gonna do my best to tell you who these characters are, and I'm gonna do my best to pronounce them correctly. If I have any Chinese speaking viewers and I am butchering the names, please forgive me. I'm just trying my best. Hopefully I will not offend anyone. I'm just really trying my best here to convey these beings and these stories in the most respectful way possible. Let's look at the major arcana first. So as I was saying, each major arcana is linked to a different deity, a different divinity, and of course in the guidebook it tells you who each of those characters are. I find the artwork first of all so stunning, and I found that energetically the major arcana is my favorite because even when I don't know who the person is, the deity depicted, before I get into the guidebook and check it out, I find that the depiction really relates to traditional tarot archetypes. So here I can see the high priestess, I can see her, being connected to the divine. All the major arcana really for me holds the energy of traditional tarot archetype. This emperor feels very Aries-like, very Mars-like, so for me it really taps into the energy of the emperor that we're used to seeing in other traditional decks, whether it's the Marseille or whether it's the RWS or even the Thoth. Like energetically and the way it's represented for the major arcana, I think the representations are spot on, and I absolutely love learning more about who these deities and divinities are, because like I said, I'm not someone who was very familiar with Eastern mythology or Chinese lore, Chinese culture. Look at this chariot, it's so cool. And when you read who these people are, you really understand more about why they were chosen for each card. So for example, let's talk about strengths. Remember this one. This is Kwa Fu. I'm pretty sure that's how you say his name. And I will read to you what the guidebook says about this one, because that way you can also understand how the guidebook reads, and you can understand how it holds your hand to explain why each character was chosen, or each divinity was chosen for each tarot major arcana. In the guidebook it says that according to classic mountains and sea, Kwa Fu was the leader of the giant tribe in the cold north. He was tall and mighty, possessing immense strength. He had a red heart that emitted heat from the sun, providing warmth for his people to endure the harsh cold. However, as time passed, the northern weather became increasingly severe, and the heat from his heart was no longer sufficient to meet the tribe's needs. Determined to chase the sun and absorb its heat, he decided to pursue it relentlessly. Disregarding the consequences, he ran after the sun, getting hotter as he approached. With the increasing heat, he lost more and more moisture from his body until he passed by the Yellow River and was so thirsty he drank all the water in one gulp. Continuing on his journey to chase the sun and bring warmth to his people, he ultimately collapsed on Fang Zhong Mountain, which is depicted in the Five of Pentacles. So I love that about the guidebook, actually, that it explains when each card is relating. If there's a story that concerns different people, different beings in the deck, it will always tell you how they relate to each other. So I thought that was really well thought out and really clever. So it explains that he ultimately collapsed on Fang Zhong Mountain, which is depicted in the Five of Pentacles. And after his death, his massive body transformed into fertile land. His sweat turned into forest, his blood became rivers, continuing to nourish the land surrounding the mountain. So as you can see why he was chosen to depict strength, because his determination, his courage, his bravery to try and catch the sun ended up in his ending, but through his ending he provided fertility, he provided help, and he provided abundance for his people. So this is a story of bravery, of resilience, and I really loved to learn more about this one, and I thought that was a great choice to represent strength. All of the major like this, each archetype, once you read the guidebook, you really understand why they were chosen. It makes a lot of sense. And again, I think the artwork is really stunning. There is so much detail in this artwork, which is why I would understand some people would think it's AI, but I'm really glad that they can prove that it's not. As you can tell, a lot of work was put into this. Look at this hangman. We have the death card, is super powerful, one of my favorites. We look at beautiful temperance card. In terms of using the deck, I found the major arcana the easiest to work with, even when I was not familiar with who these characters were. I could really, even just from the way they looked, pick up energetically on the meaning of the card. I will say for the minors, it got a little bit harder, which is why I was saying, for me, this is definitely not a beginner's deck. This is more of a deep study deck, a deck that's going to require effort, that's going to require you to sit with it, to work with it. This is not a deck I could pull out of the packet and start reading tarot cards to someone else with. It really required a lot of effort, a lot of study, which personally I love doing, but that I understand it's not the case for everyone. So here we have the Sun card. This is Xiao Hao. Hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Is also known as the White Emperor, and he was the son of the Yellow Emperor, who is actually the magician in his deck. It is said that when he was born, Xiao Hao, 5 dragons came to congratulate him, and he was also linked to phoenixes, as when he was younger he was visited by a bird that had predicted that he would self-immolate and be reborn. So this is the emperor that is related to dragons and phoenixes. Those are his totems, those are his symbols. And in the guidebook it explains that he has extraordinary wisdom and talent, that is able to predict the future and fortunes based on the movement on the stars, and that he has a very benevolent heart, that he managed to lead the Eastern Yi tribe in peace, prosperity, contentment. So he really represents the sun energy in the warmth, with like the idea of dragons and phoenixes, this idea of kindness, of warmth, nature, and charisma, which I thought was perfect choice for the sun. So really great choices here for the major arcana, and I really loved learning more about who these people are. And here is our last major arcana with the world, and we're gonna look now into our minors. So like I was saying at the beginning, the minors are separated into 4 elements. We have cups relating to water. Cups is called the magical artifact suit, which represents magical artifacts, magical objects, and magical plants that all have significant importance in Eastern mythology. I will say when we get into the minors, that's where I was struggling a little bit more to read with this as a regular tarot deck, because the way it's depicted is so different to traditional imagery. So I'm going to be showing you guys like the cards like this, so you'll be able to see the whole suit, and you're going to see for each of the cup suits we have different artifacts or different plants. And whilst I found the artwork absolutely beautiful, until I read the guidebook I didn't understand why each of the cards were depicted this way. Because for example, when I see this for the 6 of Cups, as a tarot reader, nothing like this tells me this is 6 of Cups, right? It's so different from traditional imagery. That being said, when you read the guidebook, that you understand that this particular artifact holds the meaning of the 6 of Cups really well. So this is a full suit, and as you can see, very different to traditional tarot. But what I want to do is I want to read to you a couple of my favorite cards, like entry from the guidebook, so that you can understand a little bit more about how it reads. So let's talk about the Ace of Cups here, which is called the Qian Queen Circle. I really hope that's right. I've tried to look it up on Google, so hopefully I've done an okay job, but I'll leave the name here just in case. And in the guidebook it says that this in English is translated roughly as a circular artifact containing heaven and earth. Originally it was a treasure owned by the deity depicted in Justice in this deck, with crafted from 10,000-year-old gold buried deep underground. And the places where the gold that was made to create this is actually relating to the Page of Pentacles in this deck. As I was telling you, pentacles are all related to places, so the places where this gold was from relates to the Page of Pentacles. In its center is embedded a blue heart soaked in tears shed by the chieftain of the merfolk, depicted as the 10 of Swords in this deck. The Qian Queen Circle carries rich cultural connotation of Eastern Taoism, symbolizing the cyclical nature of yin and yang, the cyclical worldview, as well as a Taoist concept of natural order and governing through non-interference. This can be held in the palm and rotated freely or worn around the waist or the shoulder. Due to the inclusion of the heart-soaked tears shed by the chieftain of the merfolk, it possessed the unique ability to purify the emotions. Let's also talk about the 4 of Cups, for example. The 4 of Cups here, it represents the blue lotus. So in the guidebook it says that this grows in a cave that is imbued with celestial and earthly aura. It's an aquatic plant with an icy attribute, and it is so beautiful that it seems inaccessible to all enamored by its allure. The guidebook it says the blue lotus wilts every 500 years, gathering energy in anticipation of its next bloom. During this withering period, it becomes exceptionally fragile and many mythical creatures admiring it would step forward to protect her. Amongst them, the most formidable in combat is the Yin Dragon, which is the Queen of Wands in this deck, is silently safeguarding this divine herb through countless days and nights. However, the Blue Lotus perceives the Yin Dragon as a different kind, with a too heavy aura. Hence, at her weakest, she refuses to allow the Yin Dragon to approach her. Later, the Yin Dragon joined the great battle against Gong Gong, which is the death in this tarot deck. When the mountain collapsed due to the great battle, the Blue Lotus was not protected, which meant that it plunged into a prolonged coma, unable to be awakened nor to display its once dazzling beauty. So you can understand here with this idea of Four of Cups, this idea of like apathy, of not being able to open up to fully bloom, because we have the story of this beautiful flower that is so beautiful that everyone is enamored by it, but that goes through this phase of withering, of not really blooming, of not being able to shine, which is very Four of Cups kind of vibe. And also the idea that even at the end, because of a great battle, it ended up just sleeping, falling into a coma because it was not protected. So we also have here with this idea of the Four of Cups of not paying attention to what matters, potentially missing out on something because we're not really looking. So I really think that reading the guidebook, understanding those stories makes so much sense. For me, it really opened the cards meaning, and it made really a lot easier to relate to the stories and to relate to the cards. And this is why I almost ended up using this deck almost like an oracle card deck. I would like pull 1, 2, 3 cards just because I was heavily relying on the guidebook, like I said. As you can see, even the court cards are very different to what we're used to seeing in the court cards. We don't have any people in the court cards. We again have artifacts because we're still in the realm of cups, which is related to artifacts and plants. This is definitely a unique take on tarot, and something that, like I was saying, is going to require a bit of study, a bit of time getting to know, unless of course you are already familiar with this lore, with all of these artifacts, with all of these stories, in which case it's probably easier for you to understand how they relate to the tarot card. For example, let's talk about the King of Cups. The King of Cups is the Horn of Fantasia, and in the guidebook it says that the Horn of Fantasia is a treasure of the Fantasia clan. Since the time of the creation of the world, the most powerful creature clan in the ancient world was the Fantasia clan. Due to their overwhelming strength, no one has ever seen their true appearance. They possess unique talents and powers, capable of controlling thunder and lightning, manipulating storms, and even devouring a city. However, Fantasia creatures are creatures with remarkably calm temperament, never indulging in reckless behavior despite their extraordinary strength. In reality, Fantasia creatures do not have horns. The Horn of Fantasia serves as a vessel for storing the wisdom of the clan, used to pass down the history of the clan. As the Fantasia creatures are formed from the convergence of heaven and earth, they have no parents, so in order to pass down the wisdom of the clan, every time a Fantasia creature dies, it will deposit its soul power and survival wisdom into the Horn of Fantasia for the young Fantasia creatures to learn. Therefore, this horn is a supreme treasure that accumulates all wisdom from this ancient clan. So you understand again why this is a King of Cups. It holds wisdom, it holds emotional knowledge, it relates to a tribe which is very wise, which is very in link with their emotion. So again, when you read the guidebook, you really understand why they chose it, and this is why I was so reliant on the guidebook myself when I have been working with this deck. Okay, let's move on to the swords now. So the swords are related to ferocious beasts. So we have this, it is linked to air, and it's they've decided to link the sword to ferocious beasts because in Eastern mythology, these beasts are very cunning, they're very smart, they have strong like mental capacities, they're very like intelligent and witty, but they can also be quite offensive in their and aggressive in their energy. And this is why they've decided to relate them to the sword suit. So again, as you can see, each card is depicted a different mythological creature. And again, when I was using this deck at first, I was like, okay, when I look at this way, I don't see traditional tarot at all. So how am I going to work with this? And I can understand that it would be like that it would be intimidating to some people because this is really not a traditional deck, like I was saying. However, again, when you read with the deck and you use the guidebook, this is when it all makes sense. Because personally, when I look at this way, I don't know the difference between this and this. As someone who doesn't know who all of these creatures are, I literally, until I read the guidebook, have no idea how to differentiate this Four of Swords with this Seven of Swords, with this Five of Swords. To me, in my very amateur, beginner like mind, they kind of all look the same. I'm gonna be honest. So I really struggled with the sword suits the most, because when I was putting this, at first I was like, okay, how is this giving me Four of Swords? I don't see the Four of Swords here. However, again, because of the guidebook, it suddenly like was making a lot of sense. And this is, like I was saying, why I ended up using this almost in an oracular kind of way, because it was like putting a couple of cards and reading the guidebook was how I made this work for me. So I want to talk about one of my favorite card of the sword suit, which is actually this one. This is the Seven of Swords. This is the Bichi, which again, I hope I'm pronouncing correctly. And in the guidebook it says it has a unique appearance with a massive body resembling a walking heel covered in tough scales that gleam in the cold light. Its limbs are sturdy and powerful, each step seeming to shake the earth, causing everything around it to tremble. Bichi is extremely skilled in solo combat. Its performance on the battlefields are remarkable. Despite its immense strength, it does not act recklessly. Instead, it is very strategic. In battle, he will devise his various clever and deceptive tactics, sometimes deliberately exposing its weaknesses to lure enemy in, then striking with thunderous force when they least expecting, delivering a fatal blow. Other times, it lurks in the shadows, using the environment to conceal itself, waiting for the perfect moment to strike like lightning, dealing a deadly blow. So this is a sneaky creature, okay? It's sneaky, it's luring people in, it's pretending to be weak, and then it's striking on. So it holds very well the energy of the Seven of Swords, and again, it makes sense again once you read the guidebook. And so I thought that in that sense, the guidebook is really well written, it's super interesting, and I've learned so much through this, because it really tells you who each of these creatures are. And again, the artwork is really detailed, and whilst I can understand why some people would think it's AI, because sometimes we see this artwork, very detailed one, and we automatically assume it is AI, you will see on the Kickstarter, like I was saying, process of this like designs. Specifically, I remember seeing this King of Swords, they show you it on the Kickstarter, like how they've gone from hand-drawn to this version of the card, and I thought that was really cool. So let's talk about another one of my favorite cards in the sword suit, which is this Knight of Sword. Very gorgeous. I mean, look at this lightning energy. This is the Thunder Beast, which is a creature. Fur is literally made of lightning, and each strand contains potent electrical energy. When the Thunder Beast is excited or enraged, it will release lightning, intertwining like myriad thunderbolts, while its eyes are sharp as an eagle. It says that whilst naturally warlike and full of vigor, the Thunder Beast maintains a high spirit at all times, fearlessly leading the charge on the battlefield. Its signature move is the Thunderbolt Dash, where it gathers countless bolts of lightning beneath its feet, forming a dazzling path of electricity. As it dashes along the path, its speed is so astonishing that it's hard to keep up with. Its strength is formidable enough to destroy any obstacle in its path, and its agility is truly breathtaking. So literally, a beast that is so fast, that is charging through, that is super agile, super fast, and that is full of lightning is the perfect representation of the Knight of Swords for me. I think it's stunning, and I really see the Knight of Swords energy once I got a little bit more familiar with this Thunder Beast. And now let's move on to the wand suit. In the classic Mountains and Sea Tarot, they have linked the wand suit to fire, which makes sense to me. You know, fire for me is always linked to wands, and this is actually linked to what they've called auspicious beasts. So here, just like the sword suit, we have mythological creatures, but these ones are nice. This one will bring you good fortune, these ones will help you out, these ones are gonna help you in your endeavors, unlike the ferocious beasts from the sword suit. So these auspicious creatures, auspicious beasts, gifts, bring good fortune, they bring they bring blessing, and they are what have inspired a lot of symbolism, a lot of talismans in Eastern culture. So you're gonna see like we have the phoenix, we have the dragons, we have like more well known, at least to me, you know, even this one, like I was definitely the most familiar with the auspicious beast from this tarot, as someone who, you know, is a little, was like I said, had done a little bit of study of Chinese and stuff. This suit was the one I was the most familiar with. Look, we have a whale. Of course I love that. So at first I want to talk about one of my favorite cards, which is this one, which is the phoenix. I think a lot of you guys will be familiar with the phoenix. So the reason why I was chosen for the Ace of Wands is because in the guidebook it says that the phoenix has a chicken-like appearance, but it boasts feathers in 5 vibrant colors. The phoenix is a king of all birds, and it produces melodious sounds akin to musical instruments. Whenever it appears, a multicolored auspicious cloud accompanies it, bringing wealth and joy to the places it visits. Therefore, the phoenix is considered a bird of good omen. When he is on the verge of death, a fierce fire ignites around it, and through the process of self-immolation, it undergoes a rebirth, emerging even more powerful than before. So seeing this energy of the phoenix, of death and rebirth, this spark of good omen, of creativity, of fire, of life, this vibrancy of life, for me makes so much sense to the Ace of Wands, and so I love that they chosen that for the Ace of Wands. And like I was saying, for me the wand suit was the easiest to approach. For me personally, these were all like creatures that I was more familiar with. Let's talk about the whale because you know that's my favorite. So this is Quan, and this is the 9 of Wands in this deck, and you can see it represents a huge whale. In the guidebook it says its body is massive and it could swallow the entire ocean. Its scales shimmers with a blue light resembling the brightest stars. Its fins are like enormous wings, each containing boundless power. However, most striking is its massive and powerful tail, capable of creating towering waves with each sweep. Yet, this creature possesses a unique ability. It can soar through the sky. It also possesses incredible vitality. Whether it's facing fierce storms or raging waves, it always stands firm and always guards its domain. It's highly alert, keenly able to perceive any movement, and upon sensing danger, it always reacts to protect itself and its territory from infringement. Therefore, this creature is often depicted as a guardian of the ocean and the sky. It does not only withstand the intrusion of evil forces, but also brings hope and courage to people. Whenever there is a crisis in the ocean or the sky, the Quan emerge, using its strength and wisdom to resolve the crisis, safeguarding this vast expanse of land and sky. This is a guardian energy, guardian of the sky, guardian of the water. And this is why for me it's such a good choice for the 9 of Wands, with this idea of resilience, of guarding the place, of standing up for what you believe in, protecting what you believe in. So that was such a good choice for the 9 of Wands. I really love that. Court cards, again, we have auspicious beasts for the court cards, all different creatures, all different beings for the court cards. So here we have Page of Wands, Knight of Wands, Queen of Wands, and King of Wands. All of the wand suit, we're gonna get into the Pentacles, which are, like I was saying, related to realms of deities and beings, mystical places, mystical landscapes. Let's have a look. So for the Pentacles, we are in the Earth suit, and like I was telling you earlier, this is the mystical realm. So every single Pentacle card is a mystical place. It's a magical place that is related again to Eastern mythology, Eastern lore. When you read the guidebook, you understand that a lot of the beasts, a lot of the divinities, they live there. So you are able to tie different cards together. When you're, for example, pulling a card of a creature or a deity, and then you pull the card of where they live, suddenly it adds another layer to your reading, which I thought was really, really interesting. That being said, again, as you can see, when you pull all the cards together, it can be a little bit difficult. We have Ace, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of Pentacles. There's something about this that when you're looking at it, you might not really understand why, for example, this is the 2 of Pentacles or why this is the 8 of Pentacles. But the guidebook will again hold your hand, and every choice, once I've read the guidebook, again made so much sense. I've learned so much, and aesthetically wise, I thought this suit was so pleasing. Like, I loved the Major Arcana. in terms of what it looks like and working with it. The wand suit I felt was the easiest to get familiar with, but the earth suit, the pentacle suit, is so beautiful. Like there's something so aesthetically pleasing. I want to go and live there. You know, it looks so beautiful. So let's talk about one of my favorite cards, which is actually related to the whale card I was just sharing. Quan, which again, I hope I'm saying that right, the whale one, the Nine of Wands. This, in the Eight of Pentacles, that's their realm. So I wanted to read to you the guidebook so you could get an idea of how sometimes the card can relate to the different divinities or creatures, how they all link together. The guidebook, it explained that this place is actually where this creature was born. And originally, when this creature was born, as we've talked about in the Wands, it's huge, it can soar through the sky and the ocean. But when it was born, it was unable to do so. Because it was so huge, its fins were not strong enough to carry it. So it had to, in this particular place where it was born, practice, learn how to swim in those super cold waters until eventually it got strong enough to not just soar through the ocean but soar through the sky. So this is a place where it honed its craft, where it's practiced, where it got stronger, and this is why it's represented as the Eight of Pentacles. So I thought, again, super interesting choice. Once you read the guidebook, you understand why this is the depiction of Eight of Pentacles. So let me put down the last card. We have the Page of Pentacles, we have the Knight of Pentacles, we have the Queen of Pentacles, and we have the King of Pentacles. So here are all the cards. I've shared with you all the cards. So I thought I would wrap up my thoughts now, do a little bit of conclusion. As you've seen, this is a very unique deck. It does not look at all like traditional imagery, and in that sense, I do not think it is beginner friendly because it is so different to what we're used to seeing. And it can actually be a little bit hard when you are used to traditional imagery to take this deck out of the box and to use it, unless you're familiar with the stories. For me, for example, as someone who was not familiar with them, I found it very difficult at first to get into this and do readings as I would with any other tarot deck. That being said, this is for me an amazing study deck. I've learned so much, and I'm continuing to learning so much about Eastern mythology, Chinese lore, Chinese culture. So if you're remotely interested about this subject, it's really rich. I loved that once I read the guidebook, the meaning for the card paired with the guidebook suddenly was accurate, was making sense. I could see how they linked tarot to those stories. I loved how some of the cards related together. So as you've seen, for example, a creature can be part of this realm, or this can be the place where a divinity is reigning, things like that. So I love how some of the cards echo each other, and I thought that was super interesting. The artwork is beautiful. Like I said, I really appreciate the fact that they were very transparent. They've only used AI to refine 4 cards. I appreciated that transparency. That being said, is this the easiest deck in my collection to use? No. Is this something that definitely taught me a lot and opened my mind? Yes. And I really enjoyed the process of learning and opening my mind and branching out and getting to learn more about this mythology that I really was not familiar with. So I really appreciated and enjoyed my time with this one. I can understand it's definitely unique and like a bit of an outsider in my collection. I would recommend it if you guys are looking for a deck study, or if you want to learn more about Eastern mythology, and if you want a deck that definitely takes you outside of your comfort zone, because this is definitely different looking and quite unique in compared to like traditional RWS or Tarot de Marseille. The guidebook, like I said, is fantastic. I relied heavily on it. It's beautiful. The PDF, there's many pages, as you've seen, for each of the cards. We have deep meaning, lore and stories about who or what is depicted on the card. At the bottom of the guidebook, you even have a table with traditional tarot meanings as well, so you don't just have the mythology, but you can also relate that back to traditional meanings. I thought that was really great. Overall, I really enjoyed my time with it. It's, for me, a deck I'm going to continue using to learn more as a bit of a study, to pull 2 to 3 cards. I don't see myself at yet the point where I would be comfortable reading with this for anyone else, because I'm still not super familiar with all the stories and everything, but as a personal project of personal reflection, of deepening my knowledge, it was great. I know that there's definitely going to be some people who are really interested in learning to know more. Specifically, like I said, if you guys have any ancestry relating to Eastern culture. If you want to learn more, if you are interested about this particular lore mythology, which is something we don't see a lot of in tarot deck, I think that this is super interesting and well done. So I wanted to share it with you guys. I'm gonna leave it on that, just a few cards so you can see what it looks like. Very striking artwork. I wanted to thank you so much for being here. I wanted to thank Heritedge for sending this my way. And until my next video, I'm sending you so much good vibes and keep navigating the waves of your soul. Bye!